Vessels at sea crash into each other more often than you would think. But I bet you never heard the story about the time a submarine crashed into a car. Let's hear about that story here on Down Periscope, Up Periscope. Hello everyone, welcome back to Down Periscope, Up Periscope, Tales of Submarine Tours. I am your host Tim, and here we have another classic submarine sea story, and another one of our favorites, from our good old captain. Now, like many sea stories, the proper opening line for this one should be, "This is no shit." Now, given the details of the story, it had to have occurred before the captain's time in service, and there's almost no way to actually verify the details of it. So, like any sea story, just take this with a grain of salt, and the facts have most likely changed as the story has been passed down through time. But it wouldn't surprise me if some version of this event did in fact occur in real life. It's so outrageous that there must be some element of truth to it. Now, a little bit about our featured tour guide, the captain. He is asked to remain anonymous just for reasons of privacy. Our captain, as his title implies, is a retired 06, having spent some 30 years in the US Navy. While he did not serve on any Barbell-class submarines, he is still eminently qualified to discuss submarine operations, having served as the commanding officer of 2 nuclear-powered submarines. One was a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine, and the other was an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine. Given his experience, he has a great many sea stories to tell, some of which are actually true. So, with that being said, let's get into the actual story.
Diesel boats and lots of smoke. The skippers of many submarines would pride themselves on their ship handling skills. And of course, back then, submarines had 2 screws, so they could turn very easily stationary, which is harder to do on a nuclear submarine unless it has an outboard motor or secondary propulsion motor, and then it may be a little easier. So one of the things that they would do to show off their skill was called a one-bell landing, which meant that you came into port and you lined up and brought your ship in and just had one backing bell at the right time and with the right amount, so it would stop your ship only inches from the pier or dock. Okay, that's a one-bell landing. So guys would certainly try to do that. Now, in this case, or in one case anyway, and this is New London, they had a number of piers that were submarine piers that were sticking out from the main dock. The dock there had parking spaces. The premier parking spaces, of course, were reserved for the commanding officers, so they had close access to their boat. In this one case, skipper comes in for his one-bell landing, and for one reason or another, the backing bell was not answered in a timely manner, and the ship continued on. It didn't stop until it hit the dock. Now, the diesel submarines at that time, of course, had a high bow, and the pointy part of the bow was higher than the dock. Well, the place where it hit was where a car was parked, and the car happened to be the skipper's car. So, this is a case where the submarine CO had a collision, not with another ship, but with his own automobile. And I think it was maybe a 49 Studebaker.
I think that would be interesting to hear the conversation you had with the insurance company.
Well, you probably had a conversation with the insurance company. and the Commodore.
All right, well, thank you for that story, Captain. All right, I'll conclude this episode off with a few comments. In the story above, we should of course be thankful that nobody was injured or killed, and that the most significant damage, apart from the captain's pride, likely occurred to the car. Unfortunately, I have no information on the specific submarine, who this captain was, or the exact model of Studebaker that was involved in this story. However, for the sake of argument, let's say that the CO's car was a 4-door 1949 Studebaker Champion Deluxe, which has a curve weight of approximately 2,879 pounds. Furthermore, let's also assume that the submarine was a Baleo-class boat, which displaces some 1,525 tons standard when surfaced. So simply put, the Studebaker got the worst of the collision. It's not going to do much against, a 1,500-ton submarine. Now, at the risk of being pedantic, what occurred in this story is technically termed an elision. The difference between a collision and an elision is that the former involves two vessels striking each other, while the latter involves a vessel striking a stationary object, such as a bridge or a pier. Of course, these two events fall under the general term of what the U.S. Coast Guard refers to as a quote-unquote marine casualty. Now, that's a pretty broad term. It could include anything from groundings to strandings, fires, flooding, foundering, etc., all of which can cause damage to property and the environment. Now, a lot of people are under the impression that because the ocean is vast, it's somehow empty. Well, on the contrary, there's a lot of stuff both on and in the ocean. Collisions, even on the open ocean, are more common than you would think. The number of accidents only increases when vessels are operating around congested waters, like a strait, and of course around ports. Ocean, currents, weather, etc. can be unpredictable. When you combine this with fallible technology, poor situational awareness, and the general propensity for humans to act stupidly, often when combined with hubris, alcohol, and drugs, then it's really only a matter of time before accidents occur. So, in a way, I'm not entirely surprised that, an old diesel-electric fleet boat submarine like this one could have hit a car on a pier. It just happened to be the captain's car. All right, well, there you have it. That was a pretty humorous story. Of all things to hit, the captain had to hit his car with his submarine. If anybody is listening to this story on YouTube or on a podcast channel, then there are links down below to the blog post on this. You can also find more information about the USS Blueback at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, or OMSI, omsi.edu. And additionally, if you're ever in the neighborhood of Portland, Oregon, feel free to come on down and pay us a visit on USS Blueback by booking a tour. So there you have it, folks. That's the story about the time a submarine crashed into a car. Thank you.